You're listening to the Lakewood Vineyard Podcast. We are part of a family of neighborhood churches called the Mile High Vineyard. For more information about our church or those we are connected to, please go to lakewoodvineyard.org. Stay tuned at the end of our podcast for ways you can respond personally to what you've just heard.
So as we get into today, you guys heard the song, King and Country. What do you think today is that we're going to talk about? Joy. Are you? I mean, we are. I am going to touch on peace, actually. But joy. Joy. Last week was love. This week is joy. What's interesting is you think about our culture, one of the huge points of emphasis in everybody's life that they tend to obsess around is happiness. I just want to be happy. You ever hear that? Maybe you've said it yourself. Like you just have times where you're like, I just want to be happy. And we're in a contentious cycle where people's happiness is going to be predicated on if their candidate is voted into office. One thing you have to notice about happiness is it's circumstantial. Happiness is a circumstantial, emotional reality. And there's this video, I got to show this because he does it better than I could ever do. Watch this video by this comedian explaining how the pursuit of happiness works.
Finally, one thing I've analyzed is the one thing we all have in common is we all want to be happy, right? We all want to be happy. The one thing we have in common, we all want to be happy. And several years ago, when my son was very little, I decided, this is how my brain works, that I figured out if I could come up with a flow chart, if I was unhappy, I could follow the flow chart and become happy. I really did this. This is how my mind works. So, as I looked at it, it was really hard. I had so much going on in my life. And here's how engineers' brains work. I said, I'll start with a simple model and then build from there. So I looked at my son, who was only 1 month old at the time, and I said, let's do his happiness flow chart. Okay, here's happiness flow chart at 1 month. 3 things you need. You got food, yes. You slept, yes. You pooped, yes. You're happy. That's it. That's the key to happiness when you're 1 month old, right, parents? Yes. Yeah. Now, here you are at 50. There's a lot more stuff going on. I gotta go fast. I'm almost out of time. Okay. First of all, you need money, which means, of course, you need to have a job. And if you have a job, you know you gotta have vacation because you don't like your job. Everybody does that. And then you worry about your health as you get older. And then there's all these acronyms: the BMI, your EKG, your LDL, your HDL. And that made me think, well, I like sports. So then I like the NHL and the NBA and the NFL, which I watch on NBC, where I was on AGT and streaming on Peacock. They're paying me to say that. Just want you to know that. I put that in just for the money. Thank you. I can't help it. And when I'm watching that on my TV, but no, you can't just have any TV. No, you have to have a smart TV. In fact, all your appliances have to be smart, right? You have to have a smart thermostat and a smart refrigerator, and it's a smart, it's not going to be good. Every appliances are going to be talking. You're going to walk up to your refrigerator one day, it's going to go, hey buddy, I've been talking to the scale. You are not getting in here, bucko. You are packing on the pounds there, mister. Back on. We've alerted the treadmill. You do 10 more minutes, come back and maybe we'll talk. All right, and it's not just appliances, everything. There's smart shoes now. There's shoes that have a chip in them. This is real. There's smart pants. There's smart underwear. I kid you not, smart underwear. What is your underwear going to tell you? Right, oh, it's 2 days, change alert. No! Level 2 leakage, full wedgie detected. No! I don't want smart underwear. And then I realized, well, that doesn't matter. If my family's not happy, nobody's happy. I don't know why it took me this long, but it took me this long to figure it out. So I started with my dog. My dog is a member of the family. So I have a dog. I actually made a dog flow chart. Okay, my dog wants to walk every day. He likes to scratch his stomach. He goes crazy. And he likes to roll and poop. I don't know why, but he likes that. So okay. Then there's my son. I have a teenage son. And what makes a teenage son happy? No, nothing. Nothing makes a teenager happy. Nothing, don't even try, don't even bother. But you know what makes them unhappy? Take their phone away. That makes them very unhappy. So if he's not happy, nobody. But then there's my wife, and my wife's not happy, nobody's happy. So there's my wife right there. I have not even put a dent in this one yet. Which brings me back to me. Am I happy? I have no idea. But I do know this. When you get to 90, you are right back here again. And with that, I want to say thank you all for laughing.
what I did there is I let the comedian be the one to get in trouble, with his wife. So as we see there, happiness is circumstantial. Joy, if we cultivate joy, it's meant to be pervasive, regardless of the circumstance. In fact, James, when he writes, he says this in his letter, right at the beginning, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. So let me ask you, how are you handling the things that are hard in your life right now? How do you find yourself responding when you face tough things, when things aren't going well? Maybe if you're anything like me, you've got a few go-tos that maybe James would disagree with as a way to respond. Some of mine are, I just avoid. I want to disappear and check out. I maybe avoid a person if there's conflict. People do this, when it comes to certain things, say, right now during an election cycle, that people want to just stick their head down in the sand and not have hard conversations. And when that doesn't work, anger, you get angry. Maybe you yell. Vent your frustration, take it out on others as a way to think that somehow will fix and solve things, and maybe I'll feel a little better, and yet you find at the end it's just still lingering. Or blame. That's one of my favorites. That when your circumstances aren't going well, if you could just locate your frustration on somebody else, maybe it's your spouse, boyfriend or girlfriend, if only they would just act the way I need them to act, then I can be okay. Then I would be happy. If my kids would just do the things that they should do, or if the right, it's that person in the Oval Office. They're the ones at fault for why I'm unhappy in life. All those responses don't tend to take us very far, and they don't provide joy or give us peace in our life. So it raises the question, how do we grow to cultivate joy? How do we learn? Like when you look and you consider how unhappy Americans tend to be, and then you kind of cross-compare to our brothers and sisters in third world countries in Africa, Haiti, these places that their environments are a mess. It's exponentially worse circumstantially, and yet they seem to have this joy. Like this way of smiling and engaging each other, and somehow they seem more grateful for their life than the life we have here that we're so blessed in America. So how do we do this? I'll just give you just a real simple thought is we decide. We decide. We choose joy, as King and Country would say. I choose joy. That we get to decide to live with joy no matter the circumstance. But how does that exactly work? What are the mechanics of that? What I want you to note is as we're working through the fruit of the Spirit, they kind of stack on each other. It's kind of like if you picture this fruit of the Spirit, it's like an orange, and if you peel back the orange, you've got these slices. And each orange slice can represent one of these different aspects of the fruit of the Spirit. And if you notice, love, that we talked about last week, kind of serves as the foundation that each of these, just pay attention, how are we cultivating each of these fruits of the Spirit? Because they mix together in a way that build us up. When you think about love, like lasting love is not an emotional experience. It's a decision we make. This is like the really key thing for young people. You don't marry somebody out of emotion. You decide, I choose to love this person for the rest of my life. Right? Sickness and health, and the good and the bad. It's a decision that you make every day. And so we say, sometimes you don't like your spouse, but you choose to love them. In the same way comes joy. We have to cultivate the soil in our heart so that this fruit of the Spirit can sow seeds that will bear the fruit. We have to practice. 1 Thessalonians 5 says this, always be joyful. This is Paul writing to that church. Never stop praying. Be thankful in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you who belong to Christ Jesus. Bottom line, gratitude shapes our attitude. Prayer shapes our character. I've observed people in our church who've chosen joy no matter the circumstances life's thrown at them. Spiritual maturity is reflected on people's ability that there's this deep-seated hope and joy that's in their hearts, even when their circumstances are not good. And when we look at what Paul is saying and describing here, I want to look at what he's drawing from principles of what it means to be a follower of Jesus. And then when we go to the Gospels, we see that Jesus is describing how to connect to him in such a way that it produces fruit. This is John 15. That our joy, notice what's happening here. Our joy is rooted in being people who live with deep peace in their life. John 15, as the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and your joy may be complete. You see the stacking effect that I'm talking about? Did love last week? That love feeds into joy. Jesus replied, anyone who loves me will obey my teaching. My Father will love them, and we will come to them and make our home with them. Anyone who does not love me will not obey my teaching. These words you hear are not my own. They belong to the Father who sent me. All this I have spoken while still with you. But the advocate, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you all the things and will remind you of everything I have said to you. Peace I leave you. My peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. Isn't it amazing how relevant Jesus' words to his disciples apply to us today? In the midst of a chaotic world, a chaotic political environment, we can have a peace and a joy in our lives that's not predicated by the circumstances around us. The fruit of joy and peace is the byproduct of being close to Jesus and his Spirit. C.S. Lewis says, life with God is not immunity from difficulties, but peace in difficulties. And so often we're either ruminating about past events or too worried in the present to slow down and be close to Jesus. There's a great book called Overcoming Spiritual Discouragement, written by the Venerable Bruno Lanteri, a Catholic priest and spiritual director. And it's a compilation of letters he's writing to his directees in a time where they were living through war and instability in France. They were going through tons of hardships. And he's encouraging them not to give up, not give over to spiritual discouragement. He was known for saying that a great plan of the enemy is to steal our peace and our joy in Christ and give ourselves over to discouragement. Instead, he would say this, begin again, Leave the past to the Lord's mercy and the future to the Lord's providence. How distracted most of us are from God's presence. We have access to a heavenly reality, and yet we trade it for worry. So one of the things we're doing in this series is we're taking on practices. Did anybody try last week's? Anybody? Okay. That's all right. Let's try again. People are like, oh yeah, what were we gonna do? Let me give you a couple practices to consider for this week, all right? Maybe write them down or take a picture. And we're talking about abstinence, that's something we abstain from, and then something we engage with. So it's a removal of something, and then it's an addition or an active, we activate something. So for this week, the abstinence would be fasting. One meal this week. Just fast one meal. Now some of you are like, well, I fast lunch every day now that I'm older. Anybody like me, I'm like, I only eat 2 meals a day and my metabolism's slow. So I don't know, maybe that means you have to, this is an active present choosing, okay? So look at your schedule this week, maybe even pull up your phone. I'll give you permission. Don't get distracted and go to Facebook. Go to your calendar and just say, what day might I choose to skip a meal and let myself be hungry? And in the hunger, it pushes me towards prayer and thanksgiving. Because that's that one thing when you choose to skip a meal and you're hungry, it can help inform gratitude for all the other times of the week that you're eating and that we so take for granted that our bellies are full. It helps remind us of our circumstances and the simple little things of like, you know what? Life can be hard, but like I've got food on the table. And then engage is celebration and gratitude. Send a personal celebration to a group in a text or however that might look. And the idea here is that so often we neglect to celebrate the good things in our life. Even in the midst of like hard seasons, there's still ways that we can choose to celebrate. And I have to confess, I'm horrible at this. This is like the worst for me. Like when we have all our pastor meetings and this, and we'll do these, and people actually, hey, and I'll be like, I don't know, it's fine. Things are fine. And then it's like people like hold the mirror up and they're like, but what about this and that? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's pretty good. That is great. So reflect on our church. I'm like, oh my gosh, like so grateful. Ian, I'm so grateful for you. I just want you to know that. Yeah, you're such a gift. Yeah. You should ask Ian to take you out for a cup of coffee. He will do that. And ask him to tell his story. Because if you want to know somebody who chooses joy, it's Ian. Like when you have a really hard story and you choose joy, it transforms your life. Like Ian should not be on stage leading worship, running our youth ministry. Like the fact that his life works the way it does is only because of Jesus, right? And that's a story of joy. And that brings me joy, because I get joy when I see people choosing joy in these practices.
Thanks for listening to the Lakewood Vineyard podcast. We encourage you to respond to what you've just heard by sharing a prayer request with us on our Connect card. You can find these on our app or our website at lakewoodvineyard.org/connect. You can also respond by being generous as God has been generous to you. If you'd like to give a financial gift, you can do so at lakewoodvineyard.org/give. We hope to hear from you soon. Thanks for listening.